Greetings, fellow Hyperboreans. Dave here, the developer of the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT, back with another video. And I realized recently that it had been something like about 6 weeks since my last video, so I am way behind and I apologize for that. But I'm actually recording this in Bangkok, Thailand today. My wife and I are spending the winter traveling around Southeast Asia, so if I think about it, I'll let you all know what city and country I happen to be in for the next several videos that I record. So today we're in Bangkok, Thailand, where it's a beautiful and balmy 86 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in the afternoon. And we're going to talk about quite a few items today. I'm actually covering more than three full releases since the last video. So the last video was the release of version 2.0, and of course that was a fairly significant release with the conversion of all the apps to application version 2, which is a Foundry thing, and some additional actual features that were visible to folks to be able to use, things like that. So today we're actually going to be covering all the updates that I've done since then, which would be release 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 just a couple of days ago. So yeah, like I said, lots of things. I'm going to try and keep this fairly succinct because I have a feeling the video might run a little long anyway, just because there's so much that's been going on. So we'll start with release 2.1, and that actually includes three releases: 2.1.0, 2.1.2, and 2.1.5. So with release 2.1.0, we had a few items that were included. The first was that healing spells now have a heal button instead of damage in the chat. So when you cast a healing spell, and I'll just go ahead and do that. So Niella, my cleric, she has a Cure Light Wounds spell that she can cast. It's memorized, so I can just easily cast it. And so we'll do that. And as you see here, it now says healing 1d8. And the way this works is I actually added a new healing damage type. So when you look at the spell, you see hit damage is where you put the healing amount, but then if you recall, we've got these damage types, and this of course is totally optional. If you leave it alone, it's just going to default to basic. But I have added, as I said, the healing option at the very bottom. It's not alphabetical order. I kept it outside of the standard damages, so I just put it at the bottom of the list. But once you got that set and save your changes, of course I didn't make any changes, now it says healing here, and the system then sees that, and then you get healing 1d8 in your chat. And when you click that, there's a further option that says heal right here, 2 hit points healing, rolling healing. So basically it's using the same terminology all the way through. And then of course to heal you want to be sure and use the button with a little plus on it, which does apply healing. If you accidentally do the minus, you will actually still apply damage. So it's not going to change the functionality of these buttons. You still need to use the correct button for healing, but at least the text makes a little more sense. So that was the first item update, or new feature, if you will, released with version 2.1.0. The second feature add was the ability to buy, that is to say, a buy option for merchant actors. So the way that works is we'll just open up Carrick here, and then I know I've got Marcus the Merchant, so we'll pull him up. So you may remember the merchant actor was released, I believe, in 2.0, if I remember correctly. Very recent anyway, so I'm pretty sure it was 2.0. And initially, all you could do was buy items from the merchant, but not sell to the merchant. Well, now you can players can sell items to the merchant. So the way this works is you can see there's a buy/offer fraction. So this is what the merchant is going to offer as a percentage or a fraction of the retail price of the item. So when I look at my items here and I say, well, iron rations are worth 5 gold pieces. He's not going to offer me 5. He's going to offer me 3/4 of that when I offer to buy it. Let's do something a little more simple, like a hemp rope. That's just 1 gold, so it'll stand out very easily. So when I drag that to the merchant now, and I just drag it anywhere onto the sheet, you can say how many to sell. You can see he's offering me 0.75 of that 1 gold piece. So that's what I'm going to get. And of course the system will calculate that back to me in terms of silver and copper, whatever it takes to make 0.75 gold pieces. And then you just click sell, and it will actually decrement the number from my inventory. In fact, if I do that, since I'm only at 1, there it went. It just disappeared from my inventory. So it does actually delete it from the character sheet inventory. And if I find rope on here, I think it has to be spelled the same, but yes, rope hemp now says 2. It would have said 1 previously, so now I will buy it back. And of course now he's going to sell it to me for 1.05 gold because there's my sell/cost multiplier. So that's the multiplier times the retail cost of the item or standard cost of the item. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that. So now I just lost some coin in the process of selling it to him and then buying the same item back. So, you clearly don't want to make a habit of that, or the merchants win that game all day long. Anyway, so that's what you can do now. You now have the option to sell your items to a merchant, and the merchant will buy them from you. And of course, the GM can set these numbers. So if you're a nice GM, you can set that at 1, and it'll give players the full value of their items. But, I mean, who wants to do that? What merchant in their right mind would offer full retail value of an item that's used? Not going to happen. In fact, I think 0.75 is actually pretty generous, but it's all good. This is a game. Okay, then the third item that was included with release 2.1.0 was that effects with a variable duration can now use JavaScript Math functions in the duration field. So that's complicated, but the way it works is, let's see, do I have acid arrow? I do, so I can show you that right on Carrick here, who's a warlock, and he happens to have the acid arrow spell. And so the acid arrow might have extra duration based on the CA of my caster, as you can see right here. 1 extra round if he's caster ability 4 to 6, 0 extra rounds if he's lower caster ability than that. But then 2 extra rounds, 7 to 9, 3 hits CA 10 or better. So what you can do is, that's on the effect. So if we look at acid corrosion now, and I look at this, and I don't know if I already had this set up or not. I did not. But what I can do is I can actually put this duration formula. I can now use a JavaScript Math dot round function, or a Math dot max, or Math dot seal for sealing, or floor, things like that. And then I can put things in parentheses. So I could say at CA, for example, divided by 3 or something. Offhand, I don't remember what the formula would be to do that variable duration. But you can now do something like this. The system will actually see this math dot whatever, and it will then run it through a JavaScript interpreter to correctly calculate what the duration of the acid corrosion should be. Now the funny thing is, I did this feature. This is the exact spell that I had in mind for it. I honestly have no idea if there are any other spells or effects that need something like this, but I do know that it needed it for acid corrosion, and I was doing it for the compendium for Hyperborea, which of course has been in active development for some time, and we're getting closer every day, but I don't have an ETA on release for that. That'll have to come from Northwind Adventures Publishing. But in any case, for now, math dot whatever functions in JavaScript can be used with variable duration of active effects. That doesn't work the same way with the duration of an actual spell. So if you have a spell with a duration, you can't have a variable duration on those. Those have to be, this here is not, you can't put a formula in there. It's only for the actual active effect, okay? So that was it. That was it for release 2.1.0. Moving on to releases 2.1.2 and 2.1.5. Basically, those two releases included the visual themes for actor sheets, and you're looking at one right now. This here is the Warlord theme that I've applied to the Carrick's actor sheet, or character sheet. An actor sheet is either an NPC/monster or character sheet, or merchant for that matter. So Marcus the merchant, he has the default dark theme, okay? So I have the whole system set to dark as the default, so that's what Marcus gets. But then, and that's not a custom theme, that's the built-in dark theme that comes with Foundry. But then Carrick has the Warlord theme, and the way you set those themes is you actually go in and see toggle controls. You're going to click that. You're going to configure the sheet, and right here under theme, you can see now light and dark and default are the built-in ones with Foundry, where default is really either light or dark, or sort of no theme, which defaults to whatever your browser is set to. So if your browser is running in dark mode, then default will actually go in dark mode, things like that. But here's the custom ones that I have created. So initial release 2.1.2, I only included Warlord and Cryomancer. And then with release 2.1.5, I added Necromancer, Pyromancer, Beastmaster, and Shadowmaster. So we've got Warlord right here. Let's see what else have I got set up. Niella is set up. This here is Beastmaster, so it's kind of a a leather brown and jungle green type of color scheme. So this is Beastmaster. And Alaric is set to Shadowmaster, which is kind of a thief/assassin. The idea is it's a little shady. It's darker than the dark theme. If you look at this, see how bright the whites are on the dark theme. So Shadowmaster is much more dim, and of course it's got the red outline highlights, kind of a blood thing going on there for the assassin. So that's what the Shadowmaster is all about, is that kind of coloring. And then if we just skip to some of the other ones, I'll flip through the rest here fairly quickly. So let's see. That was Cryomancer is a kind of an icy blue theme. Great for, well, if you really like the color blue, obviously intended with the Cryomancer class, whether you're a Warlock Cryomancer, Ice Lord, or an actual Cryomancer pure magician type. And then you've also got the Necromancer. So we've got kind of a blue and sickly green theme going for the Necromancer. And then let's see, we've got Pyromancer, and that's going to be actually sort of similar to Warlord, which I don't have. Well, I could bring up Warlord on Alaric, I suppose, just to show that off very quickly so you can compare the two visually. Warlord is a little more muted. You can see Pyromancer is brighter, kind of a more orange in the red and a much brighter gold color, more brighter yellow versus the kind of a muted bronze was the idea I was going for with this, and kind of the dark red, almost kind of a noble color. A noble red cloth type color here. Here I'm thinking lava and fire, those kinds of colors, which is why you've got the rich red and the bright yellow/gold colors there of Pyromancer. Okay, then we'll go on to quickly. We saw Beastmaster already, and we saw Shadowmaster. So that is actually all of them. You've seen them all now. And then if I go back to light theme, that's the kind of standard light theme. And you can see it's, but the only thing I tweaked here is these highlight colors they used to be more red, so I've changed them to kind of an orange, more orange color. And then it's red when you mouse away, so mouse over is orange, and then it goes red on the tabs, while keeping the font black. I had to actually override that. Not that it matters; those are technical details. But there is the light theme for those of you who might be curious what that looks like. But we'll take Carrick and set him back to Warlord, and we'll take Alaric and set him back to Shadowmaster. And there we go. Cool. All right. So those are themes. That's versions 2.1.2 and 2.1.5, releases 2.1.2, 2.1.5. And that is the end of the 2.1 release cycle. So then we moved into release 2.2, and we had a number of new features added with that. So number one, we added a bundle quantity field for items that are sold in bunches. So we're going to go back up. We'll open up Alaric on this side. We'll open up Marcus the Merchant here. And what I want to show you is, for items that are sold in bunches, what do I mean by that? Well, let's find an item like arrows times 12. That's an example of an item sold in bunches. You don't buy single arrows. You might buy single silver-tipped arrows. Those are not sold in bunches. But regular arrows, they're bought in bundles of 12. And so what you do is, you go to the Attributes tab, Bundle Quantity. Put a 12 in here. If there's no bundle, leave it blank. Don't put a 1 in there. Don't put a 0 in there. Just leave it empty, because otherwise it might confuse the system. But a 12, it will actually take that number, and it does the math. And so what you can see here, first of all, is you can put the book weight and the book gold piece value for the bundle in here, and the system will correctly divide that up when you start using these items. So if I'm now in my inventory, maybe I have 10 of 12 arrows, it will actually correctly calculate 10/12ths of 1 pound and 10/12ths of 5 gold pieces when it's actually calculating the value of the items in my inventory over here. So in addition to that, when I'm buying and selling, it will do it correctly by bundle. So when I do this, drag it from the merchant over, oh, I don't have enough gold. So let's quickly just give myself a few hundred gold. There we go. Now I can take and drag my arrows over. and you can see how many bundles of 12 to buy. So that's a new phraseology, terminology for bundled items. For individual items, it'll just, it'll be the how many to buy. Very simple. But if you're doing it bundles, you get how many bundles of whatever to buy. And it's going to give you that bundle pricing. And of course, it's going to do the sell cost multiplier. So instead of 5 gold pieces, it's 5 1/4 gold, because I'm getting that 1.05 multiplier on the cost. The rest of that works the same. I can buy some of those. I don't remember. Alaric probably has yeah. So he has arrows already. You can see he's got times 10, which is kind of weird. That was probably some old test that I ran. But if I add that now, since it's actually a different name, it's going to come in as a new item. If they matched, if the previous one had said times 12, it would actually have, it would have added the two together for me. But as it is, I now have 2 groups here. Now I could manually merge them. I'm not going to bother. You get the idea though. It bought and sold it in a bundle, and now if I sell 10 back, I'm not sure if I can actually do that. Oh, it's going to let me. I wasn't sure if it would do that. So that's kind of nifty, and it'll let me sell 9 arrows back. That's because I didn't have those arrows set up as a bundle. If we look at that, because again, this is my test system, so yeah, I haven't actually updated this to have a bundle quantity on there. If I made that a bundle quantity, then it would be different. But anyways, so that's bundle quantity, and again, I'm trying to keep this concise, so we'll just move on. The next feature, part of release 2.2, was to add the time field to the calendar application. So if you recall, the calendar application is accessible from this open calendar button right here, and if I click that, here's my calendar. This is the Hyperborean calendar, and I've talked about this in a previous video, but now I've added a turn start time and a current time tracker. So the way this works is, the turn start time is the time that's assigned when you reset the turn number to 1. So you can see right now I'm on turn number 8, and it's 9:10 in the morning. Okay, so if I just do a reset, this button right here, so if I just do a reset, now I've reset the current time turn to 1 and the time to 8 a.m. Okay, and the calendar doesn't necessarily update dynamically, but I can just close it and reopen it. Not a big deal. I might fix that in the future, but it was such a minor bug I didn't worry about it. But it does correctly reset, and it sets to this number. So this is the reset time when you reset the turn to 1. Okay. Now when I advance the turn, it's going to advance the time, the current time, 10 minutes each time. So when I click that, you can see now turn 2, the time went to 8:10. And in fact, the current time actually even reset or did update here correctly in the calendar. And also, since I had a turn advance action set up, this one's disabled, but this one is enabled. This is the random encounter table. So it rolls that every time the turn advances automatically. I have that set up. So it rolled, and it actually rolled a random encounter. And if I advance the turn again, now we're at turn 3, it advanced the time by another 10 minutes because the turn is 10 minutes. It does another number, it rolled another encounter, etc., etc. And that's how that works. And you can see the time is advancing on the calendar as well. So that actually worked. The other thing is when you hit the send the date to the chat, you now get the time included in that. As well, when you send the current turn to the chat, you get the time. Okay? So that's all part of release 2.2 was to add that. In addition, players can now see this turn tracker. So it used to be that this was only visible to the GM, but players can now see it. And I'll show you that quickly by joining the game as a player. So I'll just set myself as a temporary player. We'll let this reload. And what you're going to see is this loads, the turn tracker, loads as a kind of a read-only mode. So the turn advance buttons are simply not there. What you do have, click that, pop this open, and once this is finished loading, we'll see the turn tracker momentarily here. There it is. You can see I've got the open calendar button, and I've got the display in chat button. So if I do the open calendar, it opens that up. The calendar, likewise, for a player is read-only, so I cannot click the drop-down. I can't update this field. It's read-only. Turn start time is not editable by a player. So this is all visible. I can click days all day long, but nothing happens. It's visible to the player, but not changeable. I can send the date to chat, but I can't actually change it. and I can send the time to the chat, but I cannot actually change it. All those buttons that have functions in the turn tracker are simply hidden, and in the the calendar are likewise hidden. Okay, so that was that feature. And then finally in release 2.2, there was actually a bug fix that someone had reported a bug to me, or they created an actor, an NPC, in their personal compendium. Then they imported the NPC into the actors directory right here and tried to add it to the scene, a new scene, and they were getting error messages about a missing item. Well, it turned out the real issue was that the NPC had a weapon attack, and for whatever reason, when they added that weapon, it wasn't being given an attack roll formula by default. The system is supposed to do that. So if I look at, these are just this. Oh, I'm still in as a player, so let me back out really quickly. We'll go back as GM, and I can show you an NPC and show you exactly what I'm talking about. But the point is, this issue is fixed. So it doesn't happen anymore, so I can't actually show you the error, but I can show you the fact that it's resolved. So if we go in here and we look at a monster, which is an NPC, and if I look at one of his attacks, like this claw ×2. So the idea is this formula was not being populated. This is populated automatically by the system. And what happened was when the user who ran into the issue, they were creating the NPC, they clicked add attack, they get the new weapon, and they did their editing and updated things, and this formula was not being populated. It is now because, like I said, the bug is fixed, but it was not being populated at the time, and that was leading to the error. So resolved now, all good. Okay, that is the end of release 2.2, and now we move on to release 2.3, which just came out yesterday from my time zone. We have 4 new items, new updates or features as part of this release, and 1 bug fix. So starting with the features, I sort of pointed this out already, but I added the current time to the time tracker. So this time, right down here, and where it says 8:40, that was actually not there previously. So this is new with release 2.3, adding the time to the turn tracker so it's immediately visible. And of course, it's visible to players as well. So the second feature added was when sending an item description to the chat, we now include annotations. Now, annotations are on weapons only. I did leave it open from a system standpoint to say if I ever add annotations to items, spells, whatever, class abilities, whatever, it'll handle those correctly as well. But for now, weapon annotations, which you may be familiar with from the player's manual. So if we look at the longbow, composite longbow, you can see I've got this annotation. I'll just pop it open so you can see better. It's this one down here. Strength damage adjustment applies only if draw weight is adjusted for the archer. And that is selected. So it appears here under annotations. And so when I send a description of the item to chat with the little eyeball button here, I get the full description and I get annotations right down here, just above the damage button and below the lengthy description for a longbow. Because a longbow, at least the way I had it set up on this character, is a fairly lengthy description. It's actually the bow description from the player's manual, followed by the composite bow sub-description from the player's manual. And then the system also looks at the rate of attack and the range fields and adds those below the description, and finally adds the annotations. So that's a new feature, was to include the annotations if you have them set up. If you don't have annotations on an item, that's fine. It won't give any errors or anything like that. Like there's no annotations on an arrow, of course. So I can just send that and you get a very simple description, and that's all you get. Okay, let's see. The third feature with release 2.3 was to add a new phased initiative type. Now this is a big one. And in fact, along with it is the fourth feature, which is to add a new other action declaration. So those of you who are familiar with Hyperborea's combat rules may be familiar with the concept that there's an order of actions. Excuse me while I just assign my skeleton to the red group. There we go. There's an order of actions that goes melee, missile, magic, movement. Okay? Those are the 4 standard actions, and those are the ones that have been in Hyperborea for some time now as actions you declare before rolling initiative. So everyone has to declare their actions before rolling initiative each round. Well, I've now added an other action type right down here, and that is listed in the player's manual. It's a little bit separate, but it talks about, in the player's manual, it talks about things like digging through your backpack to pull out a potion, feeding a potion to a fallen party member, binding someone's wounds, trying to pick a lock in the middle of a combat, or trying to, jury rig or work on some mechanism while you're in the middle of an encounter. Things like that. Those all fall under other, and those go last. They follow after movement, so it's melee, missile, magic, movement, other, in that order. And the system now tracks them correctly. And this is now set. We were going to talk about phased initiative, so I'm talking about other initially here. That's been added, and that works for whatever initiative type you choose, and it does put it in the correct order. But I'm also going to talk about the phased initiative next. So for that, we have to go into game settings, we have to go into configuration settings, and Hyperborea 3rd edition. We go into configure Hyperborea, and then in here we're going to go to the combat rules, and it's the very first item. Prior to this, there was, up here it was use group initiative, and it was just a checkbox, yes or no. And if it was checked by default, but if you unchecked it, the system would then go to sort of the Foundry basic individual initiative. But group-based initiative was the default. So now I've actually made it a drop-down, and there's 3 possibilities: group-based, phased, and individual. Group-based is still the default. So when you fire up your new system after updating, or if you install this system fresh, it's going to be set to group-based initiative by default. So what is phased initiative? Phased initiative is very similar to the Ash or Hyperborea 2nd edition initiative rules. It's not exactly according to the book from Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea 2nd edition, but it's very close. And I had seen a number of referees and players discussing how they do initiative in the Northwind Adventurers Discord, as a matter of fact, and it seemed like the phased initiative came up on a semi-regular basis, so I thought I'd go ahead and add it. So it's a little bit simplified from Ash 2nd edition, but basically what phased means is it still goes melee, missile, magic, movement, other, but within each of those phases, those are now considered phases, like the melee phase, the initiative winners who are doing melee go first, then the initiative losers who are doing melee go next. Then we go to phase 2, missile, and again the initiative winners go, then the initiative losers, and then we go to magic, etc. So instead of being 100% group-based, where the initiative winners all go as one big group, melee, then missile, then magic, then movement, then the losers go as one group. Now everything's kind of interspersed, but they are, winners, losers, winners, losers, winners, losers of initiative for each of those phases. So that's how phased initiative works. And if all you have to do is set that, save your settings. It's going to ask me because it needs to reload in order to recalculate things, and so we'll go ahead and let it reload. And then you've got your initiative set up. So I could actually do a combat. In fact, I think I had already started an encounter. Yes, I had. So if I just very quickly now, we'll let this finish loading because it needs to create the groups. There we go. Got our groups. So now I can say Alaric is doing missile as an example, and Niella would do spells. Carrick, maybe he's going to do, he may need to do a movement plus melee in order to get to one of these specters. But the specters all need to do move plus melee if they're going to get to anybody. This skeleton, as I recall, he had a dagger he could throw. So we'll just do that. See, now this gets me every time. I'm going to click begin encounter, and it's going to reset all this. You must click begin encounter first. Then you can start declaring actions. I know this. I wrote the code, and I forget it all the time. Okay, once again, Alaric, he's missile. Niella was spellcasting. Carrick is going to do move and melee. The specters were doing move plus melee. Skeleton was going to throw a dagger. Now we've got it set. And now I could do, I'm just going to roll all for everybody. But of course, if I was actually playing, I would have the players roll for their group. Players get a roll for my group button up here. GM gets roll all. And then as a GM, I would just do re-roll initiative to just roll for this group. But I can do the same way just by re-rolling initiative for this group. And there we go. And you can see the players won. They got It says 66, that was the highest number calculated versus 61. So the second digit, in the ones place, that's the actual die number that was rolled. You can even see it in the chat. Group red rolled a 1, group blue rolls a 6. By the way, I'll probably change the 66 and 61. For now I left it in place just because I didn't consider it a showstopper bug, but it is technically a bug. It should just say 6 and 1, so I'll fix that at some point relatively soon here. But as you can see, now Missile got to go first, and by the way, if you mouse over this area, you actually get the final initiative number that was calculated. So his became 66.016, and what that is it's adding a value for Missile, which is actually being added as 60, plus the die roll of 6, so now you've got 66, and that 0.016 is his dex divided by 1,000. So that's where those numbers come from. So melee is worth 80, Missile's worth 60, magic is worth 40, movement is worth 20, and other is worth like 2.5. So I didn't have other selected for anybody, but that's where those numbers come from, and that's how we get things to sort correctly. And even though the combatants are listed in their groups like this, the system will in fact go through the correct order, and I'll show you that because this skeleton is set to Missile, as is Alaric. So you can see when I start advancing the combatant turns within the round, you're going to see this jump from Alaric to the skeleton, and then it's going to jump to spellcasting for Niella. Then it's going to do melee plus movement, of which there's 3 of them, so it'll do them in that order. So we'll just do this next turn, and it jumped onto the skeleton, like I said. Then it's going to jump up to Niella, like I said. Then we're going to do Carrick because he's got a higher dex than the skeletons, 12 versus 9. So if you look at his number, 16.012 versus 11.009, and that's also because they rolled a 1 versus the 6. So 16 obviously being considerably higher than 11. And then these two guys, the skeletons, actually have the same number, 11.009, so it just does them. And that's the end of the round. We've moved to round 2. Everything's reset. Their actions are gone, and we're ready to go to declare for round 2. I'm going to go ahead and end that. But that's how phased initiative works, is it jumps back and forth between the groups based on initiative winners and losers. Okay? So that actually covers the last 2 features that were part of release 2.3, and there was one bug fix that I haven't mentioned yet in release 2.3. And this is there was an issue where a spell with a range on it could not attack a target in an adjacent square from the caster. And the reason that came about is because if you have, I'll show you the setting that I'm talking about, if you have a certain setting, a combat rule set, forcing range limit on attacks, and what this does is this prevents a weapon or spell attack if it's out of range, disabled by default, but if you enable it, it will enforce not only being beyond long range, but also for missile weapons, they're not allowed to attack a creature in an adjoining square or an adjacent square. I don't remember what page that is in the player's manual, but it is in there explicitly stated that missile weapons cannot be used to attack a creature in an adjacent square. I think the assumption being that there's just too much chaos in the moment, presumably, even if the person in the adjacent square is not attacking the archer or crossbowman or whatever this person is, even if they're not being immediately attacked, there's still too much activity for them to try and make that close of a point-blank shot. So this rule enforces that, and it will not let you use a bow or a crossbow or even a thrown dagger on someone in an adjacent square. The problem was it was also applying to spells. Spells don't have the same restriction. So I've now fixed that. So you can actually use a spell, a targeted spell that has an attack roll, on a creature in an adjacent square, and it will allow it to go through. It still enforces it against bows, slings, missile weapons, but not spell attacks. Okay, so that was a bug fixed, and that was the last item with release 2.3, and that covers everything for this video. We covered 3 releases, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, and lots of features have been added, and lots of stuff has been going on. This is 6 weeks worth of development, so I've had a lot of little things going on. But that's all I've got to say for today, folks. This is Dave, coming to you from Bangkok, Thailand. Happy gaming, and I'm signing off.